Hi, I'm Jacob Day.
And I'm Taylor Thiessen.
This is Measuring Poverty for Dummies.
By dummies. Poverty's not what you think it is.
We ought to define poverty as a condition where a household lacks social and economic ability to function successfully in a society. We ought to measure poverty through a short-term and long-term system, measuring the capabilities and economics of a household.
We chose this definition through the research of Nussbaum's capabilities approach, the OPM, the SPM, and many other forms of poverty measurement. We came to this wording due to the common opinion that poverty is highly influenced by the economic misfortunes and deprivations that people experience. The important words that we would like to highlight from our definition are condition, social, and household.
So why is poverty a condition? We stated that poverty is more of a condition than a definite threshold based solely on income. This is because poverty is a sickness that, if not cured quickly, can become worse the longer it is untreated. We believe that poverty is similar to the general principle presented by a complex disease, such as cancer. It is incaptivating, nearly impossible to escape. There is not one definite solution to cure poverty, but there are ways to create solutions for some of the forms. Also, the use of the word condition indicates that true poverty is long-term.
So why do we include social aspects? We included both the terms economic and social in our definition, because poverty isn't just an economic issue, but a social issue as well. In order for one to function successfully in society, they must at least have access to 10 basic capabilities. These 10 are the capabilities that Martha Nussbaum argues are necessary in her capabilities approach. They are life, bodily health, bodily integrity, sensuous imagination and thought, emotion, practical reason, affiliation, other species, and control over one's environment, both politically and materially. In other words, individuals ought to have sufficient capability to maintain agency over their own life and future. For example, in A Question of Class, Dorothy Allison's story about her own life in poverty showed the pressure from social dramaturgy, the roles people play in society. The pressure for her to stay in her family's continual cycle of poverty nearly captured her. This was caused by society's pressure for her to play the role that her community told her she was destined for, and had little to do with economics. This is an example of the inability to function successfully due to the stigma from poverty and its infringement on her capabilities, specifically the capability to control her own environment.
Why do we define poverty by household? We also chose to define poverty by household because people in the same house eat together, pay bills together, and have at least some degree of shared finances. We defined household as a group of people living together, becoming one body where one person is not better off financially than the other.
Our definition of poverty guided our proposed measuring system. We elected to have two measures, one each measuring short and long-term poverty. Both measures use household as a standard and are quasi-relative, including both social and economic factors. The short-term poverty measurement, hereby referred to as the STPM, weighs economic factors more than capability. If someone dips below the poverty line for a short period of time, it is most likely due to a temporary economic hardship rather than a lack of essential capability. Conversely, the long-term poverty measurement, hereby referred to as the LTPM, weighs capability over economics. People who are in poverty for longer periods of time are more likely to be stuck in their situation due to capability deprivation. This type of measurement will give an accurate image of the impact of capabilities and show the extent of poverty as a societal systemic cycle.
Both measurements measure capability by viewing the aggregate of the capabilities of different people in the household, an idea presented by Martha Nussbaum. The capabilities are recorded through a biannual census that each household fills out. The census would be required in order for households to receive or renew any kind of income-related benefits, ensuring that everyone is accurately measured. The census questions are objective, preventing families from being biased or skewing results. For example, the census would record bodily health with questions about weight, height, age, medical conditions, access to nutritious food, and exercise. The census will be a form delivered by mail and will include a postage for the form to be mailed back.
The capabilities are converted into a rating out of 100 and is combined with the SPM's dollar amount converted into a rating out of 100, where 100 is the best access to capability and money, and 0 is the opposite. The distribution is based on percentage, where the person in the most poverty is at 0, and a person who isn't in poverty at all is at 100. All the data will be entered into a database so that at any given time, information can be found based on any search criteria. For example, the data on those in poverty could be split into deciles to see the distribution and extent of those in poverty. The threshold for our poverty measure is the supplemental poverty measures threshold, converted into a rating out of 100, where 100 is the threshold. This number is compared to a household's rating from the STPM or LTPM to see if they are in poverty.
The SCPM includes those in poverty for less than 2 years. The rating will weigh economic factors at 60% and capabilities at 40%. This is because of the tendency of short-term tenures in poverty to be temporary economic hardships. According to Professor Ann Huff Stevens, researcher at UC Davis, transitions into and out of poverty often happen after major events such as marriage, divorce, or changes in income. They are also associated with economic factors such as unemployment rates or wages. These factors are typically temporary.
The LTPM includes those in poverty for more than 2 years. The rating will weigh economic factors at 40% and capabilities at 60%. This is because of the tendency of long-term poverty to be rooted in capability deprivation. The LTPM also includes those dipping in and out of poverty continually for 2 years, as long as they were in poverty for the majority of the 2 years. According to Harvard professor Amartya Sen, capabilities are concerned with evaluating it in terms of his or her actual ability to achieve various valuable functionings as a part of living. This would indicate that capability is more important to discuss when looking at a household that is deeply rooted in poverty.
So why do we split up the measure at 2 years? According to the data from the U.S. Census Bureau, while 29% of the nation's population was in poverty for at least 2 months between the start of 2004 and the end of 2006, only 3% were poor during the entire period. The Bureau also noted that for those who were in poverty for 2 or more consecutive months, from 2004 to 2006, the median length of poverty spell was about 4.5 months. Almost half of such spells ended within 4 months, while about 12% lasted more than 24 months. This data indicates that 2 years is an adequate benchmark.
The official poverty measure, or the OPM, is currently in use by the U.S. as the leading measurement of poverty. The OPM uses an absolute threshold to create distinct separation between impoverished and not. The OPM was created in the 1960s by Molly Orshansky based on the cost of food from a basic food plan. Then, Orshansky multiplied that number by 3 because a family in the 1960s spent approximately 1/3 of their income on food. However, since the OPM was created, there has been a decrease in the cost of food due to its commercialization. Also, there are now other things such as televisions, phones, and other utilities that take up more of someone's income than before. In addition with these changes, the OPM only takes into account an individual's cash earnings when measuring an individual's proximity to the poverty threshold. The OPM does not take into consideration any in-kind benefits such as welfare that could increase an individual's income above the poverty threshold, showing that they're not actually in poverty. John Iceland brought up a 2000 Baltimore Sun story arguing that the lack of the OPM's capability to change has caused the measurement to become outdated.
The Supplemental Poverty Measure, or the SPM, is a quasi-relative model for measuring poverty, meaning the threshold is determined by real expenditures that varies based on geographical location. The measure would be determined by the cost of basic needs, like shelter, food, utilities, and clothing, not just food. The SPM uses the cash incomes of an individual's income, but it adds in-kind benefits like Social Security and unemployment benefits, and subtracts non-discretionary expenses that the individual or family will never see, like income taxes. The SPM's threshold is different than that of the OPM. The SPM has a set threshold around 33rd percentile.
Stated are our works cited for this presentation. Thank you for listening to a few dummies for a couple minutes in order to learn more about poverty. We hope that your worldview was at least impacted about the issue. Thank you.